Mm-hmm.
I'm here.
Hi,
Okay.
Sheila.
Well,
I'm here with
we're
two of your favorite people.
Hey.
wonderful. Hi. How are you?
Hi.
Sorry I'm late. We just sat
That's
a little.
okay. We haven't started yet. So I want to welcome everyone for joining us at Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and I'd like to thank you for joining us wherever you are, especially if you're on the Awake and Ascending Clubhouse hosted by Bridget Renee Holiday. Thank you so much. If you're watching us on Zoom or Facebook, YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe.
Yes,
And if you're watching us on the canned platforms, thank you so much for being here. Now, tonight, my co host is Alan Steinfeld, and he's the founder and the host of New Realities, and he's the author of Making Contact. And it's funny because, a couple months ago, a friend of mine was saying, "Oh, I've got this guest you just got to invite." And I'm like, "Awesome. Let me go ahead and invite him." And then I had asked Alan to be my co host. And as I began to look at everything that was going on, then I noticed that Alan and I both had invited Greg to join us for tonight. So we're doubly lucky. And Monday night we had Greg. He began talking with us about hydrogen and its importance. And tonight we're going to go ahead and move into part 2 of that talk. But right now I want to go ahead and turn it over to Alan. And Alan, thank you so much for being here. I know you couldn't make it Monday, but I'm glad you were able to make it tonight.
well, thank you, Sheila. I'm just coasting through the beautiful little town of Sedona here. So I'm going to switch to my computer as soon as I get to where I'm staying with our Portal to Ascension friends. Actually, we have a little moving portal to Ascension. But Greg is a fantastic human being. He's a great researcher on health and healing. He's been through his own process of healing. And what he discovered about the element hydrogen, hydrogen is the first element. A whole universe, the whole three-dimensional world is made of hydrogen. That is the direct link to source. So he found a machine that actually duplicates the purest hydrogen that he's found, and he's researched it. And I happen to buy that machine too. And I've been drinking the hydrogen water, and I feel so much more grounded, so much more cleansed out, like
Awesome.
detoxing and clear-headed, actually. So, I mean, he goes into the whole science and the spiritual dimensions of hydrogen. So, yeah, let's bring him on because he has so much to share his years and years of research and health, and especially for your business as a healthcare provider, Sheila. I think you'll find it really interesting. I know we shared on Monday, but let's go deeper into the hydrogen man's secret chamber. Let's go into the hydrogen. Let's bring Greg on.
All right. Well, Greg is here with us. So, Greg, thanks so much for coming back and being with us tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you and let you begin to share a little bit more about the hydrogen. I know we had phenomenal questions last week. Alan has some questions I'm sure that he wants to be asking you as well. And so we'll go ahead and just let you get started again. So, thanks so much for being here again.
Oh, thanks for having me on again. And really, I mean, it really depends on what you guys want to know, because there's so many different directions that you can go with hydrogen, because it's literally, I mean, it is the most abundant element in the universe. I mean, almost entire universe is made of almost 80% hydrogen. So there's so many different ways. So I didn't know what direction you would like to go, or what.
Well, let's
types
go
of
into
questions
like
people
the
have.
spiritual direction that you were talking about, and sort of the sort of higher awakenings that hydrogen created for you. Some of that, Greg, would be great.
Well, one of the biggest questions that I probably receive has a lot to do with the pineal gland. Actually, a lot of people have been focusing on that gland, and it is obviously extremely special, literally at the center of the brain. Now, the reason that that's very interesting is, I don't know how much everybody has looked into, for example, in ancient scripture, when you look at the Garden of Eden and ancient scripture talking about whether it's the tree of life or the tree of knowledge of good and evil, if you look really closely, and you'd have to look closely because there's a lot of arguments about this, and I didn't take anybody's word for it. I had to go and do my own research. It literally speaks where it was located. And the location of it is in the center of the garden, which is interesting because it's in the center of our brain. And that's where it gets really, really interesting. And the thing is that there's a lot of things, even in the human body, it's very hard to break through what's called the blood-brain barrier. And it's extremely difficult. And the thing that hydrogen can do is it can easily, by the way, it's not difficult for it, like extremely easily for it to break through the blood-brain barrier. And if you make hydrogen properly, because hydrogen appears to be, and I should always say that I'm not giving any medical advice or making any medical claims because you guys all know how this world works these days. But basically, if you have really, really clean hydrogen, it's easy for it to, again, break through that blood-brain barrier. And it's not easy for a lot of things to be able to do that. And to be able to neutralize free radicals, in order to be able to basically help with the purification process, the healing process, even some of things that are just stuck, and really bring a lot of healing. And it's actually quite easy for hydrogen to do that, not only with the pineal gland, but it can penetrate down to the bone marrow. It can penetrate everything. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, it can literally go right through glass, right through metal, right through concrete walls. It's almost like a ghost or a spirit of sorts. But it's something that's definitely on our side. And science, which, by the way, it was not easy for science to figure out how all this worked, because it happens so quickly that it's difficult to measure. And even to this day, the science hasn't really understood exactly how hydrogen works. It can see that it works. So it can see that it does certain things, but it doesn't really understand the full mechanism. There are obviously things that they figure out the hydrogen functions as what they now call a selective antioxidant, which is not a normal antioxidant. Because one thing that most people haven't researched or even understand is that antioxidants actually come in different sizes. So if you've ever seen a chart, I almost wish I had a chart here for you, and I could probably pull one up on the computer. But like the molecule, like CoQ10, vitamin C, vitamin E, glutathione, and then you take hydrogen. It's so tiny. And this is one of those funny extreme examples that being smaller is actually more powerful, because it can penetrate anything. When something's too big, it really can't enter down to the core of maybe the mitochondria or maybe the pineal gland. So obviously it becomes extremely important, and the way that it can be used is really quite magical. You guys still there?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we're here. We are here.
So like I said, I didn't know what direction you guys would want to go, or what questions, exact questions you guys might have.
I want to say, Greg, that is a really great understanding about the core element, and talk about its kind of cosmic origins. Like stars are made of hydrogen. So how does hydrogen become the rest of creation? That's what I'm sort of interested. And how does it, manifest in our bodies as well as we take it in? Yeah, go ahead.
It gets extremely complex. I like to keep things really simple, like just to give you like one example. Like, for example, gold. Does anybody know where gold is actually made? I know that we're talking about hydrogen, but if we talk about gold, a lot of people don't know where gold is made. It's actually made in stars, like our sun. So gold, like, for example, the gold that we have on planet Earth was actually made. I know that we value it as money, and to me, that's all silliness. It was made out in the universe, and it was made in a star, which is primarily made of hydrogen. A star is made of almost entirely hydrogen. Some people sometimes will try to argue and say, well, stars are also made of helium. Well, guess what? What do you think helium is made of? It's hydrogen. It's just another form of hydrogen. Just to give you another example is like oxygen. Oxygen being O2, if you add one additional oxygen molecule, it'd be O3, but O3 is now ozone. but in the end, it's still oxygen. And so helium is just another form of hydrogen itself. And you create something like gold. And the interesting thing about gold is, do you know what happens if you throw gold in the ocean, like a bar of gold, like after 100 years or 1,000 years? It doesn't rust. Think about that for a second. You throw almost anything into the ocean, it's going to disintegrate in time. It oxidizes. Oxidation is linked to oxygen. Oxygen oxidizes. If you've ever seen the size of the oxygen molecule, it's about 3 times bigger than hydrogen. Hydrogen is extremely tiny, but hydrogen is not an oxidant. It functions as an antioxidant. And this ultimately brings me to the point of when I was talking about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Good and evil, this is all down to translation. So these are just words. Good and evil can also mean light and darkness. It could also be life and death. And if you look at water, which is the knowledge that's coming, by the way, this whole thing about the age of Aquarius has everything to do with the knowledge of hydrogen. And of course has to do with the knowledge of water, but water is primarily hydrogen. And if you really look at water and what it has to do with the pineal gland, what it has to do with the Garden of Eden, all this stuff, hydrogen and oxygen is the antioxidant and the oxidant. Good and evil, life and death, light and darkness, they're intertwined like the tree of knowledge of good and evil. See, this it all comes together, and we begin to quote unquote understand it. And even hydrogen, by the way, this is very, very new information, and there's going to be more in the future. Even hydrogen can become a metal. And this is crazy, by the way, guys, because we're talking about something that's a gas. Hydrogen's a gas, okay? And even water itself, if you really think about it, is 2 gases. It's oxygen and it's hydrogen. And you combine them and boom, it turns to water. And water is more of the physical world, the world that we live in. We're primarily made of water. We're physical beings. But something like hydrogen, which it's more of a theory of mine right now. It's not completely solidified. It almost seems that hydrogen might be an interdimensional molecule because it can go through anything. I mean, it can go through anything. Like I said, it can go through glass, it can go through metal. You can't contain it. You know, it's almost like God. You can't contain it. You can pressurize it. You can put it in a tank, but you're not going to contain it forever. It will eventually escape. Nothing can contain hydrogen forever. And it can transform into so many things. You can have liquid. Well, you can have liquid nitrogen. You could have liquid hydrogen. It can turn into metals. It's so multi-dimensional. Now, what nobody really realized is that our bodies, I know that we tend to think they primarily run on sugar, for example. They literally run on hydrogen. I mean, that's true source of energy. We are like stars. We are hydrogen beings. We're primarily made of water. So when it begins to go into you, somebody actually contacted me. It was actually a doctor. I get a lot of doctors contacting me because they see the results of using hydrogen. Now, you wouldn't think that you could use it for health, but guess what? You can use hydrogen for so many different things. Just think of how we use water for so many things. So we can use hydrogen in the world of medicine, which, by the way, am I in a place where I can say certain things freely, or are we like on YouTube where I can't say certain things?
Well, we
Yeah.
are on YouTube, but I think that you can
Okay.
speak freely.
No, I definitely can't because I know exactly where I was going to go with this, and you will get blocked for this one. So I'll keep that one out. I'll tell you that, I'll say without saying the word that will get you in trouble. There are certain medicines that were one thing, and they were transformed by using hydrogen molecules. And it enhanced these medicines. And one of these medicines is widely known right now. And I can't say the word because we don't have free speech. Let's go, Brandon. Sorry. But anyway, so I can't name it right now, but it's going to transform the world of medicine. It's going to transform the world of energy. This is what the age of Aquarius is coming to. It's what some would term the golden age. I mean, yes, we're going to have to go through some hard times, but hydrogen is that pivotal point that is going to change everything once we truly begin to understand its powers. And by the way, we're just scratching the surface, guys. The things that you'll be able to do, like, here's one of my theories. And we already know that hydrogen can be turned into a metal. We can probably create, go ahead.
Explain that, because it doesn't make sense. If hydrogen's a gas, how would you actually ever change it into a metal?
Well, as I kind of alluded to earlier, gold was created in a star, which is basically almost all hydrogen.
Right.
It happens through, this is, okay, I'm going to give you a big secret here, Alan. In the future, what we're going to begin to discover is using pressure and using changes in temperature. The combination of these two things, we're going to be able to create things that literally humans, like, we're talking about new elements to the periodic table. We're talking about things that we didn't even know existed. So you could potentially have a piece of metal that's super tiny, that's like the size of a coin, and power, an airplane or some type of aircraft or something, and have massive amounts of energy from something just so tiny. It's going to begin to blow the mind for the things that we can do. Now, the main thing that I'm focused on primarily, and this is probably just because of what I've been through, is how it affects our health, how it affects the human body. I mean, this is really the part that interested me, because that's what got me into hydrogen. I was super sick. I couldn't walk. I had a ton of pain. Organs weren't working properly. I mean, I just had so many issues. But hydrogen appears to be at the core of all that. And that's where it really began. What I didn't expect, I honestly did not expect, like zero expectations. It didn't even enter my mind that hydrogen would be something spiritual. It's like, it just didn't even cross my mind. The craziest part is that it actually appears to be the most spiritual molecule in all of existence. Like you alluded to, Alan, it's the number one thing. It's the building block of everything.
Well, it comes directly from source. If it is one electron, one proton, it is the foundation of creation. But where does hydrogen come from? If it's the building blocks of the rest of it, it comes from the source itself. That's what I discovered talking to you. It was a revelation. It is the most direct thing to the essence of the divine, let's call it that way. So taking that in your body, and I've been washing my face and my eyes and my hair with this great machine, the best hydrogen machine that Greg recommended, the Holy Hydrogen Machine, the Lord's Holy Hydrogen Machine. People want to look that up. I'll put that in the chat. I know you have a code. Should I give my code? Want to give your code?
Oh, you can use your code. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't actually get anything out of my code.
You don't? Well,
no.
Get a $100 discount on the holyhydrogen.com machine. Use my code, ALANCODE, Alan code, ALANCODE, and it's holyhydrogen.com, right?
That's right. The machine? Yes, and it's very important because you can make hydrogen in so many different ways. You can make it through chemical reactions. You can make it through ionization. There's different ways to make hydrogen. The problem ultimately arises now, as far as if I want to use it, what I would call medically. I don't give any medical advice, but the unfortunate part, this actually makes me kind of sad, actually, is there's so many ways of making it in a way that is not clean. And that was where I really began to run into the deeper parts of my research. That there are, a lot of companies use a chemical called lye or sodium hydroxide. I don't know if you guys, how familiar you are with this. It's the main ingredient in Drano. And you can use it to make hydrogen, but I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't want to inhale it or drink it, And so if you want to apply it, for certain aspects of the body's health, obviously what you're mentioning there, Alan, holy hydrogen, that device, I don't know let me share, if you guys are up for it, I can share with you the story of not only how I stumbled upon it, the guy who created it. Yeah. Because it really is amazing. He has a daughter who was born. I mean, it's very sad, but she was born with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. They told him, look, your daughter will be lucky to make it to the age of 5. Now, I don't know if you guys have children out there, but that would be a very sad thing. And she had just chronic, health problems. He knew about hydrogen. This was a Japanese gentleman. And he basically believed that hydrogen would make a difference. The problem is that there was no device out there for home use. You could get the clean hydrogen, but it would be extremely expensive. You would have to have a lab. I mean, it would be very difficult. So in Japan, he's a Japanese guy. The way the Japanese do things is very different than the rest of the world. In America, people are always fighting and competing. The Japanese believe in working together. They don't care if one industry does well as compared to another industry. They believe that it's all for the collective. The Japanese are really big on the unity part. So he went out to like huge companies. In America, this probably would never fly, but he went like to Toyota. He went to G-Shock. He went to like Yamaha. He went to all these, and there's another company, I never remember the name of it. It's a special metal company. And he asked for their specialties, their technology, their engineers. He said, look, I want to create the best hydrogen machine for home use, to basically something that was affordable. And they helped him. And he did develop, and it's a one-off. So there's a lot of technologies that are used in that machine that ended up being patented because they were new technologies. So he developed this device and he started using it on his daughter. It's small, it's easy to use. And it not only transformed her life, she's now like, I think 12 or 13 years old. She over doubled her life expectancy. I mean, it absolutely transformed, what this could potentially do for somebody's health. She's still alive. And she was supposed to be lucky to make it to 5. And what I learned was that she would continually get lung infections, like multiple infections a week. It was a constant thing. Start using the hydrogen, stop getting infections. That was really interesting because one of the examples was actually my mother also, and my father, but my mother used to get infections multiple times a year. She probably would hate for me to share this story, but she used to she would get UTIs like, a couple times a year or more. And she didn't even believe in hydrogen, but she saw what it did for my father, because my father had issues with blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, arthritis, and glaucoma. Those were my dad's big issues. And once I got him on the hydrogen, all those went away. And then my mother saw that. And she's like, oh my gosh, okay, this may actually be the real deal. So then she got on it, and then her UTI stopped. So and not only that, it's one of the funniest things, because when my mother goes without her hydrogen for like a week or two, I'm the first person she texts. She's like, I miss my hydrogen, and she didn't even believe in it before. And so it really is something that's just wonderful, beautiful, and it seems to enhance a lot of different things. And that's one of the biggest things that I've also noticed. So I use it in ways to absorb nutrients. Like, do you guys know what ghost vessels are?
No.
I mean, technically it's a medical term, but when we are born, we have like these vessels that run through our entire body. And blood, it's important that we get blood in every part. When you start using hydrogen, there's the number 1 university in the world that researches hydrogen and uses it medically, by the way, it's approved. As you get older, there's a lot of things that happen that we can measure. And I could go down the list, but one of the things that ends up happening is we have these veins in our body that literally don't get any blood supply anymore. You need your blood to enter these areas because they bring the nutrients. That's the thing about the blood. It's important because you want to get all your nutrients because the blood carries them to the body. But if the blood doesn't get to certain areas that it's supposed to get into, it can't bring them. It's almost like trucks that are carrying, all the goods and all, the water bottles, the food, whatever.
Are you referring to the microvascular system?
You can literally Google it. It's called ghost vessels.
Ghost vessels.
Yeah, and most people are not very familiar with these terms, but as you age, they literally turn into like ghost towns, meaning you no longer get blood in them anymore. Hydrogen begins to, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying it probably is the microvascular system that no longer gets the oxygen because there's not enough vitality in that part. So it becomes ghost vessels. You see, Sheila, because there's not enough nutrients going there, so they just kind of dissolve on the micro level to begin with. But of course, if it extends that way, it becomes the bigger vessels, right? So go ahead, Greg, please. Sorry.
So when you use hydrogen, and I combine the hydrogen, basically the protocols that I've created. This is the reason the doctors, and most recently another doctor today, contacted me, because they begin to see the results. That's all, that's all the doctors want to see, right? They just want to see results. Once they see certain results, are like, how are you achieving this? That's why they tend to, they end up figuring out that I'm the guy showing people how to do this. And it's not that complicated. It's actually super easy. But I want to make sure to bring the nutrients to the blood, and I combine the hydrogen to carry them. And it doesn't just open up these ghost vessels. It's also the way that it moves the blood. One of the secrets about humanity I won't go into it in detail, but eventually we're going to learn about the relationship between pressure, because pressure changes a lot of things, even atmospheric pressures. Have you guys ever had like the atmosphere do funny things with the weather and you just feel weird? Like it seems to affect you biologically, your physiology. This is something real, guys. Our bodies are connected to our physical environment. We're a physical being and we're in this physical environment and it affects us. But we're also, oh, go ahead. Someone going to say something?
No, go ahead. Keep going. Go ahead.
So anyway, it all really plays a role, but hydrogen can change those environments. You bring it into your body. Like I said, if you guys ever checked out my YouTube channel, there's a video. It's video number 68. So they're numbered. I numbered my videos so they're easy to find. I have a live blood analysis. There was a woman, I believe she was in her 30s or 40s, and they showed what her blood was doing. And then they never gave her a normal glass of water. I just had a glass of hydrogen water actually a second ago, because if you have a normal glass of water, they can see in vivo what your blood will do. And then after they saw what it would do, and it did make a difference, but it was very small. Then they gave her a glass of water, specifically from the device I like, because it is the most popular device in all of Japan. Everybody knows it's the best. They know that this guy put his heart and soul into it, and everybody knows it's the best. Even the doctors, this is what they use. It's the number one company basically in the world and in Japan in regards to hydrogen, and they work with universities. And so basically they gave her a glass of that water, and then they saw what the blood did, and it was unbelievable. It was so unbelievable that I remember I had a different doctor who contacted me from Canada, and she literally said, this is not possible. Like, this is impossible. This can't be real. And that was always a funny story, because she actually went out and bought the device, kind of like Alan did, and she took it to a lab in Canada. She said, I'm going to repeat this test and I'm going to prove that you're wrong and that you're lying to people. That's literally what she wanted to do. And after she was done with the test, all she did was prove that it actually did do exactly what I showed on my video. And then she became a huge believer and proponent of hydrogen. I mean, this stuff does the impossible. I mean, it's practically anti-gravity. I mean, again, it ascends. I mean, it does ascend. Hydrogen ascends. It goes against like everything that you would think in your mind. It just doesn't make sense sometimes. And the fact that it can go into our body and it has a mind of its own. That's why they created the term selective antioxidant. It just begins to select what it wants to do. It's just complete lunacy. It really is. And there's so much more to learn, Alan. I certainly don't know everything, about hydrogen. There's so much to learn.
So much more. I'm just making some hydrogen water here. See it here. It's very light. I'm starting to travel with it. And you just plug it in for a half hour and you have how many parts per million hydrogen is that?
So the amount of hydrogen that you can saturate into water in our atmospheric pressure, to make it simple for everybody because it gets a little complex, is about 1.6 parts per million. That is full saturation. So that machine does full saturation. But it's not just a normal hydrogen. They use a technology they use expanded metal, which nobody does, the highest quality, and it structures the hydrogen. Nobody does that. This is the only company that's learned how to structure the hydrogen and literally induces, this gets really interesting, Alan, because this goes back to the number one molecule in all of creation. It induces the natural frequency of life itself, of hydrogen.
Wow.
And so you have structured, vibrating hydrogen full of life, fully saturated in that water. And the interesting thing is that we learned it from nature. Remember that place called Lourdes, France, or Lourdes, France?
Lourdes, yeah.
Yep. And that's literally where they kind of figured this out. I mean, all these people were drinking the water. They've been seeing healings. They didn't realize that water has a ton of hydrogen in it. I mean, nobody knew. Nobody knew. You want to hear something crazy, Alan? There's new data. This is really new. Probably almost nobody out there knows this. They're discovering that there's certain enzymes that can create hydrogen, by the way. And this is one of the reasons that I'm so big on certain foods, because fruits and vegetables primarily, so many enzymes in those type of foods, you know, and of course they have all sorts of, you know, phytonutrients. And I mean, this is all part of the protocols that I've created. I trust it in nature, really, because I just think that nature is such a beautiful creation. We really just can't mimic what it does. It's just so unbelievably fascinating and beautiful. And we try to mess around in the lab and do all these GMO stuff, which I'm not real fond of, and mess around with chemicals, and even our medicines have all sorts of side effects. And, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the things that humans do sometimes. But nature is, if we can utilize and learn from nature. And that's one thing that I really gotta give a lot of credit to the Japanese. They're really big on observing nature and utilizing nature. Even their Zen gardens, they try to utilize nature and they try to commune with it and really work with it rather than against it, which I feel like sometimes these chemical companies just don't really work with nature the right way. That's just an opinion of mine, but you know.
Jump in and say, if people don't know what Lourdes, France is, it was a spot where an apparition of the Virgin Mary would appear, and people would drink from the water there. That there's always kind of a water thing where these apparitions would appear. People would drink this water and be healed. And they would think maybe it's true that the apparition of Mary would heal them, but it's also the water that would heal them. So the Japanese went to Lourdes and looked at what's different about this water. And then they realized what Greg is saying, that there's extra hydrogen. There's a pure form of hydrogen. And this Japanese company, the Holy Hydrogen Company, created a machine. It's the only kind of machine that exists like that can duplicate that level of hydrogen. And when I've been drinking it, I feel more grounded. I feel more full. I feel like the water's getting into my body in a way that other water isn't. It's a fullness to the water. I think that's probably the structured part, because if you drink regular water that's not structured, it'll just pass through you. But structured water is more absorbable to the cells. Otherwise it's like you're like a dry sponge that gets water just poured over and pours out. But the water that this and other structured water makes, it can be taken into the cellular structure more easy. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, you're saying it really well, and it's actually true. You know, one of the funny things is the very first thing that was discovered about hydrogen water was how it would penetrate, like you're saying, the hydration, but it would penetrate the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the source of us making energy. And they utilize, you know, they did this study. It was really quite fascinating. See, this is what I mean about hydrogen changing the world. They did a study on athletes. So, you know, we're thinking about it as medicine, but let me tell you something. Athletes are totally missing the boat on this one. I mean, they're all into steroids and all this stuff, which sometimes, you know, they you know, and not all athletes use them, obviously, but some people try to get away with using them. They're missing the boat because in hydrogen, they did a study in Japan on a bunch of soccer players. And in the world of science, if something can be successful, like if they create a pill or something, if something can be successful 80% of the time, it is deemed a huge success in the world of science. And in this particular study that they did with all these, you know, soccer players, they wanted to see their endurance without hydrogen. Then they wanted to see their endurance with hydrogen. Guess what percentage of them had an improvement out of all the athletes when they used hydrogen? Do you think it was 80%? I mean, that would have been a huge success. Here's how crazy it was. It was 100%. That is nuts. That means that every single one of them improved. I mean, that is bonkers, guys. It just means that it's part of our foundation. Just, you know what, just like clean water. In my mind, everybody should have clean water. You cannot tell me that one person's like, nah, that one person doesn't need clean water. No, we all need clean water. We all need clean air. We all need clean food. We all need love. You know, we're all humans. You know, this is like, we all need the light of the sun. You know, we all need this. This is one of those things that we just all need. And that's been my observation about it. We're under the umbrella of hydrogen, basically. We all just need it.
Well, the other thing you brought up earlier was the antioxidant. So people have talked, it's not so popular now, but within the popular fads of health movements, free radicals were a big conversation. And it's still, you know, free radicals come from frying foods, free radicals in your food and oils age your body. So what does it, and free radicals are mostly oxygen molecules that are, you know, oxidizing the body. And when you oxidize something like rust is oxidized iron, so too much oxygen will create more aging. So what hydrogen does, this particular hydrogen, it combines with those free radical hydrogen oxygen molecules. So the hydrogen combines with the free radical oxygen and makes it less harmless, and cleanses your body at the same time. I've been waking up in the morning, just, you know, rubbing my eyes and stuff coming out. And I had an earache. I had water in my ear for like a month from swimming somewhere. I did a couple of glasses of hydrogen before going to bed, and I wake up in the morning and the ear has drained. I don't know how that actually affects the ears by drinking hydrogen. Could you explain that?
Actually, yeah. You know, this is where it gets really interesting, because you brought something interesting up, Alan. In Japan, when they were doing studies on hydrogen, I wish I could show it to you, but there was a list, a massive list of medical conditions, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like so many medical conditions, okay? And they had a list next to each condition that in the world, in Western medicine, basically, they would show the medicines that we would use for each condition. And the list became it just was massive, because there's so many medicines used for one medical condition, because you got the medicine, then you have the medicine to counteract certain negative side effects. And it's just, the list becomes massive. All right. What they discovered, the reason that they created this whole list was because they found that one thing, just one. So they had all these medicines, all these medical conditions. They had one thing that affected all of them, and that was hydrogen. And they couldn't understand why. It literally didn't make any sense to these scientists. They're like, wait a second. How can one thing do all this? It literally doesn't make any sense. You cannot wrap your mind around it, though they observed it. You can see that it's doing it. You may not understand how it's doing it or why it's doing it, but you can see that it's doing it. And we're talking millions of dollars. Thank goodness they've done all this for us. By the way, they did all the homework for us and all the money. Basically, what they discovered is that 98% roughly of all disease, guys, I mean, you name it, including your little ear thing, Alan, everything. 98% of all disease is due to oxidative stress. Some form, because by the way, there's many different forms of oxidative stress. So if you have too much oxidative stress in your liver, you're probably going to have some type of liver problem. If you have too much oxidative stress in your eyes, you're going to have some eye problem. And then, of course, it begins to be created into inflammation and all these different things. And so they find that hydrogen, they even did a study where they wanted to see what worked better, a pharmaceutical drug or hydrogen. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was for a heart condition. And hydrogen outperformed the pharmaceutical drug, which was a really big deal, because it's not just outperforming. What about the side effects? Now, even with not to go back into the device that I use for it, but you're making your own medicine. You don't have to rely on some industry or some company to be making medicines that you have to go buy regularly and through your insurance company. It's such a pain in the rear. I'm sorry to say, but it just gets really frustrating after a while. And just hydrogen was outperforming it. Now, hydrogen doesn't really have any known side effects. Well, in my opinion, I've seen a few. One of the side effects that I've seen about hydrogen is, and this is just mostly at the beginning, is that you pee a lot. Have you been finding yourself pee more than usual, Alan?
Absolutely. I thought it was just because I was water, or it's also to do with like cleansing of the body.
Yeah, well, think about this. If oxidative stress, or there's different forms, like even ROS, reactive oxygen species. If you have some form of oxygen and hydrogen goes in, well, what happens when hydrogen and oxygen come together? What do they transform into? Water.
Yeah.
And then you neutralize it, but now you're eliminating from your body. So that's one thing. That was one side effect that I saw. The only other there's a couple other side effects that I've seen. One of the other ones that I saw was, let me remember here. The side effect, oh yes, this was kind of interesting. One of the side effects is that it had an anti-aging property. So they did a study in Japan. It was pretty hilarious. They took this guy and they said, look, we don't want you to change anything that you normally do. Eat the way that you do, live your life the way that you do, whatever you do. And the only thing we want you to drink is therapeutic amount of hydrogen. So he drank, and by the way, it was made properly, it was cleanly. The Japanese did it right. They didn't use any chemicals. The Japanese are doing it correctly. Unfortunately, a lot of American companies are just not doing it right. But whatever, that's just my opinion. They started giving this guy the water every single day. He would drink a therapeutic amount. Not a big deal. It's pretty easy to do that, by the way. Now, they tested his blood before he started. And I don't know if you guys are aware, this was news to me. You can actually tell somebody's age by looking at their blood, roughly, you know. And this was interesting because I remember there was some girl who ate nothing but chicken McNuggets or something. And she was like 18 and her blood showed that she was like 80. It was crazy. Like she was just eating garbage. It was the craziest thing anyway. So this guy, they take his blood, they see the age. He did this for a year. And after 1 year, they retested his blood. And he didn't even do the hydrogen gas inhalation. He only did the water. And by the way, you can enhance it by doing the water and the inhalation. By the end of the year, his blood was 5 years younger. So that was one of the side effects. But I guess that sounds like a positive one, I guess.
Greg, for those people that weren't here Monday, could you please share with them about the water device that you talked about?
Yeah.
The Hydrofix.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so one of the things, okay, so there's two different things to learn about when it comes to hydrogen. Well, there's a lot of things, but of course, I like to learn about things that I can apply. If I can apply it to my life, yeah, it's so great to learn about different things. But if you can't apply it and experience it, I don't know, it's kind of pointless in my mind. But basically, you can learn all the magic about hydrogen. You can see the medical research. And by the way, there's not hundreds of studies, but it's into the thousands. It's almost 2,000 studies at this point. So you know the hydrogen's magical. The question begins to be, okay, how do I apply it to my life, right? If I decide that I want to use it. Well, not all hydrogen is created equal. And that's the part that I learned. And that's the part that almost nobody talks about. That was the place where I took a deep dive into, where there are different ways to make it. There is other equipment out there, mostly made in China or using Chinese parts is what I've discovered, almost all of them actually. The one that I found to be the best after extensive research, we're talking about years, by the way. I mean, I had to learn about engineering. I had to learn about metallurgy, like the science of metals. I had to learn so much stuff that if I'm really honest with you guys, I hated learning about. This is not what I wanted to learn about. I just wanted the best hydrogen. And it led me to understanding and finding this device, which is a truly engineered, hand-built Japanese device. They did not outsource to China. That story that I told you about the guy with the daughter with ALS, he openly admitted saying, look, I could have outsourced this thing to China. The company could have made bigger profits, more money. We could have done it this way. But he had his daughter in mind so much, he said, no way am I letting the Chinese on this. I am not going to let them build this device and screw it up. That's why he did everything in-house. Everything was in Japan. He didn't care about the cost. He said, I don't care. This is my daughter. I want the best for her. And they created the best there is. And yeah, you can find it at holyhydrogen.com. That's the official company. You can see the device there. And obviously throughout all my research, it led me to the same conclusion. This guy did his homework. And he did a bunch of one-offs, meaning that there is no other technology that exists like it. There's a bunch of patented stuff, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he did it right. And it's impressive. And I'm very grateful for it.
What I find so amazing is that it's so light, the machine. You can travel. I mean, I with it. It's just like put in a bag and not any heavier than a pair of shoes, really. I don't know how it does what it does. And in
So,
third,
Alan, are you using just the hydrogen machine, or did you also purchase the water machine as well?
now I only have the hydrogen machine with very pure. It's not as pure as what Greg uses. He does the Mine is mountain water from the Sedona Springs that comes right out of the mountain. So I don't think it has any toxins, any pollutants. It does have minerals in it. So it's been tasting pretty good, better than bottled water, I'd say. So I don't know. I'm going to have a glass right now. I'll show you my water. Comes in this thing here. And take the lid off. I mean, you really can't get the effect of it, but just pouring a little glass there.
I'm not
And
even sure you. I'm not sure you even have to take the lid off. Doesn't it have a spout to pour it?
yeah, you're right. I have the different lid on. There's one lid on these things that you could use to breathe the hydrogen in through your nose. I had that like Greg is doing. He's actually breathing hydrogen. Would you say that's pure hydrogen, what you're breathing in there?
It is pure hydrogen. Yeah. In fact, here, I'll put it on right now just because I kind of like to use it. If you guys are okay with it.
I'm drinking out of a paper cup, but this water, it almost has a taste of full, like I said before, fullness, but it tastes like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had water like this before. I'm not just selling this. It's like, it tastes full. I don't think there's words to describe the fullness of the water. Like sometimes you just drink water and it's just, oh yeah, it's water, but I don't know, maybe it's the mountain water, whatever. But I do feel, thank you, Greg. I absolutely feel better. And, maybe it's just a placebo. Who knows? But
well, Alan, it's definitely not. See, this is a thing. I understand the placebo effect and I know how it works in the world of science. But this is exactly what I love about what the Japanese have done. They've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's not a placebo. We could see in vivo what the blood does. You can see it on video 68. I even have another video where they did a study on what I'm doing right now, actually, which is inhaling the hydrogen gas, specifically from this device too, which is why it's the data is so compelling, because it's not like they were using some other piece of equipment and then you're like, now I'm using a different piece of equipment. It was specifically from this equipment. And they did thermal imaging. And thermal imaging has to do, the reason the thermal imaging is important is because a lot of people are not aware of this. The Japanese have so many wonderful discoveries, by the way, which is one of the reasons I'm going to go to Japan, and I'm going to maybe do a podcast with you guys in the future from Japan. And I'm going to continue to bring like the latest data that I can bring, guys. And the Japanese discovered, by the way, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, they discovered that almost every single cancer patient, I mean, it's like 98% or 99%, almost all of them, their core body temperature is lower than it's supposed to be. So they found a relationship between core body temperature and disease. And in this particular case, cancer. When you inhale the hydrogen gas, and it's not just when you inhale it, when you drink the water too, but they tested it with the inhalation also, it increases your body temperature. Not like where you get a fever, by the way. Just increasing body temperature. This is why they did thermal imaging. They actually specifically took it from the toes because that's the hardest part for the blood to reach, your little toe. So they specifically were measuring it from the feet. They weren't looking at your hands. Or they chose the most difficult spot in the body. And you began to inhale the hydrogen gas, and they could see the differences in temperature, because part of good body temperature and healthy body temperature is actually the movement of the blood. This is why, have you ever seen kids? This is so hilarious. Have you ever seen a kid run around in a diaper and it's like cold, and this little kid's running around with nothing on and he's just fine? And then you see an elderly person who's like super cold and it's like 90 degrees outside or something. Have you guys ever seen anything like this before? And this has to do with the way that the blood moves and also where it's getting into it. Hydrogen is literally, in my opinion, the life molecule. When all these spiritual people talking about living water, when they're talking about, when Jesus said, I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life, this thing about life is literally hydrogen. Hydrogen's at the source of life. You remove hydrogen from a plant, it will literally immediately die. You should see what it does for plants. I actually believe, and I have already my own theories. I need to wait until I compare it with some engineers and people with, unfortunately, large amounts of money, which would be nothing in the grand scheme of things. Because I mean, it's probably a project, you know, we're talking 20, $30 million. But what's 20 or $30 million when somebody pays 44 billion for Twitter, right? I mean, it would be nothing. It would transform the world of agriculture. We can make food. Honestly, I have these ideas, guys, and this is where I feel hydrogen communicating with me. This is where it gets really weird and probably more sci-fi, and it's hard to believe. And it's been taking a while since I started purifying my blood, which I've been working extremely hard on. And since I've been using hydrogen, I never in a million years thought that it would begin to communicate with me. I started having visions and the craziest of ideas. And one of them is how to use it agriculturally. Like I said, it will transform the world, in my opinion. The world of agriculture, the world of medicine, the world of health, the world of athletics, and on it goes. It's gonna transform everything.
So, Greg, if you have that machine, how long should you breathe the hydrogen in? Is there a particular time, or is that associated with what you're trying to achieve?
So let me put it this way. Remember, and this is how spiritual hydrogen is. What is the purest substance known to man? You pick anything, water, oranges, apples, steak, I don't know, you name it. Let's pick water. What happens if you drink 3 gallons of water in 30 minutes? I mean, you literally will die. You can overdose on water. You can literally kill yourself with water. I mean, this is how crazy things are, okay? You can overdose on anything. You name it, you can overdose on it. This is why there's toxicologists, okay? They have to tell you what levels are safe. Hydrogen, guys, I could breathe in this stuff 24/7 if I wanted to. Hydrogen is the purest substance known to man. And purity and spirituality go hand in hand. It's no wonder it's the most spiritual molecule in existence. By the way, you can't do that with oxygen. Oxygen's toxic. Let me give you an example. Anybody know much about diving? Like when you're diving in the ocean with oxygen tanks? If you do deep sea diving, and when I say deep sea, we're talking below, 30 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet. When you start going in deep, there's pressure. Remember I was talking about pressure earlier? Oxygen can actually be toxic. It can kill you, okay? In our environment, we can off-gas it, right? Oh, I thought somebody had a question.
No, go ahead, keep going, keep going. No, I like what you're saying here. Yeah.
Oxygen can be toxic. For super, super deep sea diving, you know what they use in their tanks? They don't use a normal mixture of oxygen that you would normally use. They use extremely high levels, and it's almost entirely hydrogen and helium, which, by the way, helium is a form of, hydrogen. It basically is hydrogen. And then they just use a sliver, like just barely any oxygen. So helium, or hydrogen basically, is more pure. It's extremely pure. So how long can I breathe this in? I could, and this is because I'm making it properly. There are other ways with chemicals that I would not be breathing in hydrogen 24/7, but this I can breathe it in all day long if I wanted to.
Greg, are you breathing in pure hydrogen? Are you actually, how much hydrogen is being breathed into your body in that tube there from the machine?
So medically speaking, so this is important to understand for everybody, and I'm going to make it very easy for all you guys. Remember that hydrogen is medically approved in Japan, not anywhere else, but the Japanese have, again, they're way ahead of all of us in this. The medical number, the number that is being deemed medical by the number one university is Keio University in Japan, is 130 milliliters per minute of pure hydrogen, okay? I'm breathing in just about that. It's just shy. I think it's like 126 or something, 120. It's basically that number. It's super extremely close. That's the amount that I'm breathing in right now. And that is the number that is used, medically in Japan.
You're breathing in. What else are you breathing in mixed in with that hydrogen? Just regular air?
Basically, what's coming through the cannula is basically just pure hydrogen. And then, of course, ambient air. I just happen to be breathing in air. So whatever's in the air. But yeah, this is just pure hydrogen. There's nothing else in here but pure hydrogen coming through the cannula.
So the
Now,
best
Greg, Monday,
through breathing it. That's what you're saying. The absolute best way is through breathing it.
Well, there obviously, so the hydrogen water, now this is where Lourdes, France really comes into play, because that's nature. That's the way nature is doing it, right? The water and the gas have similarities about the way that it affects the body. But I'll tell you a funny story. I just think this is so cool. The scientists who were studying hydrogen in Japan, they all assumed, they just literally just jumped to the conclusion that inhaling hydrogen gas would be better than the water. Why did they assume that? Because you get way more hydrogen if you breathe it in. You're going to get way more, hydrogen. So they just figured, hey, more is better, right? Because in water, what gets dissolved in water is much less. I mean, if you really figure it out, it's much less. But when they were doing the studies, they couldn't have been more wrong. And this is why you need science. I know some people poo-poo science and they're like, we don't need science. I like data because it helps show us ultimately how things work, because in the end, it's still nature, But they realized that the water had a way bigger impact than the gas. It was better. However, it doesn't mean the gas sucks and that you don't want to use it. That's not what it means. It's just a different way of using it. So the water did certain things that the gas just wouldn't do. That's all. However, I created a protocol. And look, for the life of me, Alan and Shayla, I don't know why nobody figured this out. I really don't. Apparently, I'm the guy who figured it out. Nobody ever thought of using them in collaboration with each other. I'm the first guy who did that, literally in the world, which I just still think it's bonkers. So I created a protocol. This is what I did. And 2 or 3 months after I released it to the public, I'd already known about it. I created this protocol years before anybody knew about it. But once I disclosed it on YouTube, you can imagine what ended up happening. My idea got stolen from me because these people are watching my channel. I already know they are, because every time I release something, my idea magically somehow gets out there. And I know my protocols because I created them. So I know when.
Now, Greg, on YouTube, which video number do you recall?
Video 337.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you as a healthcare practitioner, because you see a lot of people, you have a beautiful office there outside of Vail. Do you think this is a type of therapy or suggestion you would suggest for your clients? Is this something you would bring into your office?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been highly considering it because there are a lot of people I think that could benefit from it. The only problem is they would have to come in so often, to benefit from the machine. Maybe having the water available for the people that are there and then referring them on, to purchase a machine. But, I know you were talking about a health benefits on Monday night, and you were giving reference to health benefits and various protocols that you had created, and you were sharing some of the video numbers. Could you share those again? Because I want to write those down. I want to skip to the good stuff.
Okay.
You give them your YouTube channel as well, Greg. So yeah.
So on my YouTube channel, I provide everything for free. It's all free, guys. And the name of the channel is Uprising 144K. Now, if you want to help, it's also free, but you help by giving thumbs up, by sharing, by subscribing, because it really helps the algorithm. I've been trying to get this information out, guys, for years, actually. So a lot of people just don't know about this. Now, that's where you can first find the channel. The video numbers that I would recommend, Shayla, would be, now I'm going to have to go off my memory here because I have a lot of videos that I've been doing throughout the years. So I think it's video number 8 is a pretty powerful video. That was one of the ones that that was so intriguing to me because it showed us, in my opinion, how beautiful. I mean, literally, it would almost bring me to tears. So I got to like hold those back here. The protective aspect of hydrogen. One of the first intuitions that I got was that it was almost like a guardian angel, like a spirit that watches over us. And on video number 8, you can see cells that are being bombarded by chemotherapy, and you can see what it does to these cells. And I got this idea because of the reaction the patients were getting in Japan, and I've seen it myself now with different patients going through cancer treatment. And then you gave the hydrogen, and then you would expose the cells after they got hydrogen to the chemotherapy. It was mind blowing. You can literally see it for yourself on video number 8. It is night and day. You don't need to be a pro to see the difference. It is unbelievable. On prior to hydrogen, you'd get about 90% cellular damage. With hydrogen, instead of 90% damage, you'd get about 10%. And if you want to try to understand what that means, imagine a car that is 90% rusted. Good luck driving that thing around. It's going to fall apart. Then try to imagine a car that's got 10% rust. So it has a little bit of rust, but you can totally drive it. It's still drivable. You know, that's the massive difference. And that's video number 8. The other video, I believe, is either 68 or 69, but I believe it's 68. That's the one where they showed in vivo live blood analysis, where you could see what the blood would do with normal water, with no water, and with the hydrogen water. And you would literally see the difference to the point where, like I said, medical trained professionals, like I had a doctor contact me and say, that is not even possible. Like they're literally trying to say that's impossible. And it was actually, it's doing the impossible. And that's the thing about hydrogen that's so fascinating. The other videos, go ahead.
Go ahead, tell her the other videos, Greg, please. Yes.
The one that I was always hesitant about disclosing because I knew my stuff was constantly taken from me, but I just didn't want people to be without the knowledge. And that was video 337. I gave away and disclosed how to use hydrogen the best way. And in about 2 to 3 months after I disclosed that, sure enough, first study came out. But you know what it proved? Because they did a scientific study. It proved that I was right. Because I had no proof. I came up with this strictly from all the work that I've done. And but the study proved that I was right. That the combination, and by the way, I do it a specific way. I can share with you guys right now since it's already out there. You drink the water on an empty stomach. That's the first thing. Okay, you don't just drink it after you're eating a meal or with a meal or whatever. You drink it on an empty stomach. You never want to do more than 1 liter. And this is, remember, this is not medical advice. And this is if you have healthy kidneys. So if you don't have healthy kidneys, just remember, this is not for everybody. 1 liter of hydrogen water within a 1 hour period. So ideally, this is what I do. And I do a live video every single morning. I'm showing people how I do this. I pour about a 20-ounce glass and I drink it in less than 1 minute because the hydrogen leaves so fast. So I drink it and I take a few sips. I drink it in less than 1 or 2 minutes. Then I pour another 20-ounce glass. In the end, I consume 1 liter, empty stomach, first thing in the morning. This is what my father now does. And let me tell you something, my mother and father are in love with hydrogen and they didn't believe any of this nonsense at the beginning. They were like, no way, this is too good to be true. I thought it was too good to be true, but I'm happy about it because I don't know about you guys, but I love my parents. I love them to death. I would do anything for them. I bought them their hydrogen machine. They didn't want to spend the money. So I went out and bought them their hydrogen machines because I wanted the best for them. And I also bought them their water purification device, the one that I recommend from a website called mypurewater.com, because it makes the cleanest. In fact, I have the lab test right here. You know, because it show all the stuff that they did a lab test, third party, to show what it can filter out, and it does everything. I mean, there is nothing that can filter out everything, by the way, guys. This is it. I know every single water filtration modality in the world, and I only show what I actually use. I'm not one of these guys that shows a bunch of stuff.
What is that website?
That website is mypurewater.com.
And
I just want to say, Brendan, you had, I just want to ask you, what were you referring to? They say that in scuba diving, but did you have another question too for that?
oh yeah, yeah, this was back in Okinawa when we were doing like the scuba course, and they were saying something about that when you get certain pressure, there was something once you get a certain type of pressure when you're down there in the tanks and it gets into like, no, it was the air bubble, that once the air bubble gets into your system or whatever, that's that's it, you know, when you're down there or whatever, of what it does something to you. I forget what it does, but you know, it could basically kill you.
That's right.
Right.
And what I was going to ask you, I forgot Monday to ask you, and I just thought of it. So when you're out, like, you know, like say visiting people, visiting family, or a family who doesn't have the device, or even going out, what do you do far as like water when you're on vacation? Do you carry your own? Do you like, or you just suck it up and, you know?
Well, okay, so this is pretty cool. I was a little surprised about this one too. As you use hydrogen, because I literally, it's crazy to say this, I literally am the hydrogen man, because I got hydrogen all sorts, it stores up in your body, by the way. So it stores up in all sorts of different organs, but the liver seems to be a big one. The liver loves hydrogen, and you should see what it does for like cirrhosis of the liver, fatty liver disease. And I have new data, and I still haven't done a video about it. So if you guys are all plugged in, you're going to see this video. And the reason I haven't released it is it's just because the science gets so complex. And one of the things that I like to do is simplify things. I don't want to make it complex and sound like I'm super smart. I hate that stuff. I want to just make it like accessible and people understand what it's trying to do. Hydrogen transforms the way the liver functions. See, our human body, guys, this is where the spiritual side comes in. The body can do more than we even imagine. We're not even close yet to really understanding what it's possible. Okay. But the body adapts. And as you begin to produce hydrogen and you're bringing this into the body begins to change the way that it does things. It's crazy. I wish I could show you the study, but it would just be way too long and too complex. But what I personally do, when I treat my body the way that I do, could I go out? I mean, let's be honest. Could I go out and eat a McDonald's cheeseburger and have a milkshake from McDonald's and go out to eat at some restaurant and down 6 beers with a bunch of buddies? I mean, could I do this? I could totally do it. I've prepped my body where it could take some abuse. Most people abuse their body daily. I treat my body very opposite of abuse. I like love it with like if it was a little baby that I just give everything that I've got to. I give everything to this temple, so I could easily go abuse it if I really, really chose to. So if I went out on a vacation, I'm just drinking crappy bottled water from some plastic bottle or whatever, I could totally do it and I'll be fine. My father, he's a good example because he's more been my guinea pig, because I don't like to get off the clean water. I don't like to get off the hydrogen. But my father, he'll be like, shoot, I'm going to go on a 1-month vacation with your mom and I'm going to go and enjoy myself and I'll eat at restaurants and deep fried chicken. And my dad will just do, he'll just go crazy, right? And that's fine. He did that and it took 4 months of just basically not using hydrogen, and his arthritis started coming back. So he was able to go that long. He got back on the hydrogen. It took time again, but his symptoms did go away again. So it's just one of these things. Me personally, anything over 2 weeks is that's where I draw the line. I'll go somewhere for a weekend or a week or whatever. If I know it's going to be longer than 2 weeks, brother, I'm packaging my hydrogen machine. I'm taking it with me. So that's just, that's how I do it.
And for when you said taking the 1 liter, was it per hour you said? Do you only do that once a day?
No, so the protocol that I created, this is what I do. So I'll have the 1 liter of water and I won't eat immediately. I need to give my body 20 to 30 minutes to let that water do its thing and go through your system. Once there's food in your stomach, that water can't go through. Okay. So I do an empty stomach. And what I actually do, and I show this live on YouTube almost every day, I will ingest the water. And then I go and make what I call my hydrogen smoothie, because I have all these fruits and vegetables. And I use this again, there's a lot of science about the foods that I use. Highly anti-parasitic, by the way. I'm really big. I basically live an anti-parasitic lifestyle. And I do that. I won't go into the crazy part about it, but it's very spiritual. That was the whole, once I cleansed my body and I was getting parasites out of here, I mean, my brain began to function differently. I was surprised the connection between certain emotions that I had throughout my childhood and parasites. It was the craziest thing. And really pulling these out of my body. I mean, I was in tears. I would get visions of these childhood moments. It was amazing. And once I cleansed, I was like, you know what? I don't ever want to go back. So I've treated my body a certain way ever since then. And so I make these smoothies, and they're highly nutritious. I put specific things in them, minerals, superfoods that are condensed into these powders. I mean, I create this concoction, which I wasn't sure if it would really work, to be honest with you. But I've spent a lot of money doing blood work to see if my methods are working or not. And not only are they working, I literally had a doctor recently call me. This was about a month ago now or so. They literally called me because of my blood results. I've never had a doctor call me and be like, hey, I want to talk to you about your blood. And I was like, okay, what's up? And they're like, well, I'm calling about your results. Now, I worked in the medical field. A lot of people don't know that, but I worked in the medical field for 2 decades. And I know how it works. They usually only call you when there's a problem. Where there's not a problem, they tend just not to call you. So when they called me, it scared the crap out of me. I was like, holy crap, what's going on? Like, what happened? What's in my blood? And the guy, no, I'm sorry, it was a female. And she said, honestly, I've never seen blood like yours. Like never in all the years. And I was like, what is it? She goes, it's unbelievable. I actually want to know what you're doing because we want to apply it to our patients. And I was like, well, smoothies and hydrogen water. Is it that complicated? I mean, really, she's like, hydrogen. Anyway, that was a whole conversation. And so once you bring the food in, the other part of my protocol is do not snack, meaning you eat and let your body run empty. Just let it run through whatever. Don't constantly be shoveling stuff all throughout the day. I know a lot of people think that's the right thing. I don't believe in that. You let it run empty. And believe it or not, when you feel hunger, don't freak out. There's science that supports that feeling hunger is a positive thing. The body reacts in positive ways, kind of like when you're fasting, And by the way, this is something interesting too. Hydrogen water, and not the gas, which I'm inhaling right now, but hydrogen water does things to the body that are obviously measured that mimic fasting. So certain benefits you can get without actually fasting. It's the craziest thing. So, and nobody knows why. I personally think I know why, and it's probably because hydrogen, as crazy as it sounds, probably is what told me, but that doesn't matter right now. The point is that once you're on an empty stomach again and you're getting close to lunchtime, another liter of hydrogen water, empty stomach, 20 to 30 minutes before lunch. Then you have your lunch and you do the same thing again. No eating, let the body run empty. The reason you want to let the body run empty is because it really has a lot to do with the blood glucose in the blood. You want to let it just deplete itself of everything. And then you start feeling that hunger again, because hunger has a lot to do with that blood glucose number, and then you're getting close to dinner, another liter. Now, look, do you have to do a liter? Some people are like, geez, I can't drink a whole liter. You can do minimum for it to be really therapeutic. Half a liter is the minimum. And that's easy to drink. That's like this much, by the way, in this much circumference. So it's easy, and you do half a liter to 1 liter. 1 liter is just ideal if you really want to be perfect as you possibly can be. And then 20 or 30 minutes later, you have your dinner, And inhalation, this was my own, again, personal discovery. And this is the one that was stolen, whatever. But once you drink the hydrogen water, if you inhale the hydrogen gas after the water, it's enhanced. It changes everything. Now, I can tell you how I discovered that, but it doesn't matter if you don't care. The point is, that's what you do. You want to drink the water before the inhalation. It's going to make the inhalation work so much better. And that's why the water is so important.
I was thinking you have these bags. The company makes these hydrogen bags that, if you don't drink it right away, the hydrogen dissipates. If you put it in these, I guess, full insulated, because it goes through plastic. It's a certain type of material where it doesn't seep out so fastly. It will stay in this for like an hour or something. Is that how long it will?
Well, it depends. Actually, if you put it in that bag, and that bag is designed not only the material, because it has layers of this special material, and then you squeeze the air out of it, because there's numerous things that make the hydrogen escape, and that bag addressed all of them, pretty much. You squeeze the air out, so there's no air in there. Now remember, in a bottle, when there's air in there, well, the water sloshes around, right? But if you squeeze all the air out of it, the water is like almost suspended. It doesn't move around as much. And agitation makes gas release. That's why when you take a can of like Coca-Cola and you shake it up, that agitation makes all this gas release. It's the same thing with hydrogen, okay? It's a gas that you're dissolving into the water. And so you squeeze out the air, And then if you put that pouch sideways, so instead of putting it upright, which is what we're accustomed, like let's just say this was a water bottle and I put it like this, because we think of putting things upright. If you take that pouch and you put it sideways, when you set it down, the hydrogen lasts longer. That's crazy because it has to do with pressure. Remember, I was telling you, pressure is going to be the new thing in the future, by the way. So you put it sideways, and if you put it in the refrigerator or carry a little cooler around with you, it will hold in refrigerated, because colder temperatures, hydrogen reacts differently. It lasts longer. If you put it sideways in a refrigerator, it will hold over 90% of the hydrogen for 1 week.
Wow, 1 week. Oh my.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But if it's not refrigerated, it will probably hold about 80-90% of the hydrogen for about 18 to 24 hours.
Wow.
Let me go ahead and let's open this up if people have questions that they would like to ask. So if you do, go ahead and just raise your hand so you can be recognized.
I have to jump in a few minutes, Sheila, but you continue, because what Greg is saying is so valuable. Probably the most transformative, like, healing modalities that's available to the public, I would say, that I've come. I mean, everyone's coming up with the latest vitamin, but this is organic. So anyway, yeah, who has a question?
Well, great. Well, thanks for being here, just in case you have to hop off. Okay.
Anyone
right.
have a question?
Okay, Brandon, do you have one more question?
Yes. In addition to, so doing it during like the 3 meal times, do you do anything before bed?
So this is actually, Brandon, love the name too, right? Because by the way, when I said let's go Brandon, I didn't mean any offense to you, by the way.
Oh no, I know what you meant.
That's funny you got that name. Anyway, sorry if there's any Biden fans in here. Anywho, so not to get political, right? So one of my theories, and I've already put it to practice, there's no scientific data yet, but I'm pretty confident that I'm right, because most of my stuff ends up being proven right, because it just makes sense. What organ of the body suffers more oxidative stress than any other organ? You guys aware of this one?
The brain, maybe?
Brother, you're right. It's the brain. And it's really close. It's between the brain and the liver, really. But the brain appears to be the number one of all the organs that suffers a lot of oxidative stress. So part of my theory, and I came up with this theory because of the way that I was seeing hydrogen affect my mother. My mother used to suffer a lot from insomnia. Like, she just, a lot of insomnia, this probably happens to a lot of people. So one night she's like, I'm going to watch TV. And then she decided to inhale hydrogen. All of a sudden she went to bed and slept just fine. And then she started noticing a pattern. And what I realized was, see, when you inhale the hydrogen, this is the difference between the water and the gas. The gas goes straight to the brain. It doesn't just go straight to the brain. Eyes are actually technically part of your brain. I'm not sure if people realize that. So your eyes and your brain, so the way that it affects glaucoma, macular degeneration, all sorts of eye conditions. Not only that, like my father, his vision's been getting better. He goes to the eye doctor. They're like, wait a second. Like, I don't even see more glasses anymore. And my vision got better too. I used to have a light prescription. I don't need it anymore either. I got 20/20. So it got really, and I've had numerous emails of people's vision getting better without surgery. The LASIK eye surgery and all this stuff. It's crazy.
Rinsing your eyes with it too is really good. I've been doing that. It feels so cleansing. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I highly recommend, the website. It's called mypurewater.com. And if you guys want the coupon code, I mean, it doesn't matter if you use it or not, but it's Uprising144K. The name is my channel, and it gives you a discount. So, I mean, I don't know. And it does help support the channel, my channel. Yeah. But the point is when you make that super, super clean water, it's extremely important, because you don't want to just put eye drops of tap water or even just carbon filtered water. You need the absolute cleanest water possible. And the reason that I say this is there was literally a guy on the news just the other week who died because you know what he did? You guys know the little neti pot that you run through your nose and your sinuses? This guy used just normal, it was either just normal filtered water or tap water. And it's dangerous when it runs through your sinuses. And he got some type of amoeba or something. It killed him. If you read the label on these neti pots, It specifically says to use distilled water, or when you read purified water, that's what distilled water is, by the way.
Yeah, no,
So you want,
I'm just
go
going to
ahead.
jump off. But Greg, thanks. Stick around here. They have lots of questions, and I'll talk to you really soon. Sheila, thank you for letting me co-host and do all that. But keep going, Greg. This is a lifetime of research. It's so valuable what you're sharing. So thanks. Go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And so when you make hydrogen properly, like really cleanly and properly, you can take those drops. I remember this is not medical advice or whatever, but I do this. You can put those drops in your eyes. You can put them in your ears. If you run a neti pot, you can run it through your sinuses. There's so many ways to use clean water with properly clean hydrogen, but you got to make sure it's clean, guys. Carbon distillation, which is what I do to clean my water, it removes everything. I mean, all pharmaceuticals, all parasites, all bacteria, all viruses. I mean, everything. PFAS. I mean, everything. You want the cleanest water known to man, and then it's safe. You know what I mean? And so I just think that that's really important. And I can't emphasize that enough because I don't want to see anybody get hurt by doing things like, oh, I'll just use this water. No, please use super, super clean water.
Thank you.
Yeah, brother.
Thanks, Brandon. Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. And I love this, Greg. This is awesome. I've been watching your videos since the last show, really enjoying them. Watching those powerful smoothies you're doing every day.
You saw those?
Oh yeah, I love it. I'm going to be doing the same in the next day or two. I'm ordering my machine, both of them. So I'm really, really excited to get that order in and get that and start. So I had two questions. I'm just curious what your own personal experience is. I believe that you had mentioned meditation in one of your videos. I'm just wondering, it seems like inhaling the hydrogen while meditation seems like it would just take it up to a whole different level. So my question is, if you have any research there. And the second question is that I noticed that you use the netto in your smoothies. And I'm curious what brand of netto that you actually use that you would recommend on putting in there.
All right. So, and just to clarify for everybody, I assume that you're talking about natto. And natto is a fermented bean. It's Japanese. And maybe maybe they do pronounce it netto, but in Japan it's natto, Natto. Super powerful superfood. This has been well known in Japan for many years. They've done so much research on it. I've been using it for a long time. There's certain secrets about it that I know about that I never disclose because we don't have free speech. They're just subjects that we can't talk about on YouTube. And I just stayed away from it because I don't want to get anybody's channel in trouble, including my own. But as far as brands are concerned, it doesn't really matter the brand. The biggest things I try to go for is one, I try to get non-GMO, of course. I don't want genetically modified soybeans. The other big one is to look where it's from. So again, the brand doesn't matter because there's a lot of them. It's kind of like saying, what brand of carrots do you like? You know, and there's so many different companies of different carrots. You want organic if you can find it. If you can't find organic, make sure to look at the label and make sure it's not from China. You want stuff from Japan. I've seen the lab tests. The Japanese always test better than anybody. And most of them are from Japan anyway. And so hopefully that answers your question about the natto. As far as meditation, this actually goes along with what Brandon was actually asking, because he was saying, you know, what potentially is the best time to inhale hydrogen gas. The best time, in my opinion, and I believe more data will come out about this in the future, is at nighttime. And why nighttime? Because the brain suffers so much oxidative stress that when you inhale the hydrogen gas and it liberates you of a lot of this oxidative stress in the brain. And also we produce stress hormones when we're so stressed out during the entire day and all these free radicals and we produce all this stuff. If we can calm it all down by inhaling the hydrogen gas, then when you go to bed, one of the things that we know in science is the body does a lot of healing when we sleep. I mean, sleeping is magical, crucially important. So if we can kind of take the load off, you know, remove the oxidative stress, the free radicals, you'll sleep better. I believe that you will heal better at night. That's probably why it's part of one of my protocols. And for meditation, one of the things that's important about meditation is literally the word peace. one thing that a lot of people probably don't notice, this is a funny thing when I bring it up to people who are religious, and I'm not looking to offend anybody, but this is literally in scripture. So, I mean, it is what it is. One of the things you'll notice is that Jesus never went around saying, God be with you, which is kind of wild, because in a lot of churches, I used to hear that all the time, you know, God be with you and also with you. They did a lot of that in the Catholic Church. But yet Jesus never went around saying, God be with you. But what did Jesus actually say to people over and over and over? I mean, it's literally all over scripture. He kept saying, peace be with you. Now, why is it so important? I don't think he did it by accident. It's clearly important. And peace is a pivotal part of deep meditation, this extreme deep peace. Do I think hydrogen can help with that? Absolutely. I also think that being just healthy, not having a lot of stress, being calm, you know, these things are very, very important when it comes to meditation, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. And because it just seems like it would enhance it because of the cellular communication, you know, in the body, and basically how, you know, we're connecting that energy through the heart, through these fibers of light, through the cells into the DNA, that light communication, these quantum streamers that are running through our body. It seems like it would really enhance that. Just the FYI too about the scuba diving. I'm actually a scuba diver. I've scuba dived for many years. So at you know, sea level, we would call that 1 atmosphere of pressure. And so for every 33 feet that we go down in the ocean, you add 1 more atmosphere of pressure. So you can think if you had a scuba tank filled all the way up with air, now you go down 33 feet, that air is going to be compressed halfway down in that tank. So you're breathing more molecules of nitrogen and oxygen. So think of somebody that's diving really deep, you're going to get a lot of tissue loading with heavy levels of nitrogen. And like Greg was saying, it's like if you shake a soda, that gas will want to come out of its suspended state into like bubbles. Same thing happens in the body. If you take the pressure off with all that nitrogen loaded in your system without outgassing it slowly through doing decompression stops, it's going to come out in bubbles, and then you're going to end up having an aneurysm. So just thought I'd throw that out there if that makes a little sense as well.
Oh, no, absolutely. And, you know, back to your point too, this is really fascinating. If you put your body underwater, your heart rate actually slows down. So this was an interesting little scientific thing that they discovered. And what I've discovered with hydrogen is the heart can work less hard. And so the more peace you can bring, because your peace is actually connected to your heart rate. Haven't you ever noticed that when you're stressed out, your heart's going like this? And when you're super calm, your heart's all nice and calm, and you can meditate better. So meditation, and even water seems to be related to it. Even hydrogen seems to be related to it. And it's all interconnected. And, you know, I mean, I obviously have had my own experiences. I'm sure you guys have all had, you know, different experiences in what you do in regards to meditation. But I do think that it's extremely important. And I do think that hydrogen will definitely play a role. In fact, I have a theory. And one of these days, I hope to work with the right people on it. There is a device that I wish to, I just think it's going to transform the world, but I don't know how long it'll be till it ever happens. But this device, I believe, not only could it heal, this is crazy to say this. Now remember, this is not a claim, but the device doesn't exist, so it doesn't matter. I believe this device will not only heal just about any disease in existence, I also think that it will reverse aging in a way that we've never seen before. Meaning we could take like an 80-year-old man and potentially make him, 40, 30 years old again. And it will create an environment where you can meditate. Like it's going to enhance meditation in a way that you just can't even begin to imagine. It's bonkers. And but that's going to be in the future. And I think that that's something that, again, hydrogen has communicated to me, because hydrogen is going to be part of the technology. And I only got to share it. I've only been able to share it with literally just a few people, because a lawyer got involved. A very kind lawyer, by the way, not a bad one. He wanted to protect the knowledge. And I did share the data, because I had data to support my hypothesis. And I got to share with a UCLA scientist, doctor. And he actually, for the first 5 minutes, he thought it was a bunch of hogwash. He's like, there's no way you can create something like that. And then after 5 minutes, the conversation ended up lasting hours, because he was blown away by what I was, showing him. And we just need some funding, and it's going to be a long process, and engineers, millions of dollars, one of those things. But it would just be such a beautiful thing, and I really hope in the future to be able to bring that to people, and just help people and transform the world as we know it. But that's probably a little ahead of my time here. I just I thought about it as we were talking. So, but it's going to do amazing things for meditation. That's kind of why I brought it up. It's going to be so cool.
That is awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. So, if people want to reach out, if they want to support your work, where can they do that? Do you have like a donation page somewhere?
I don't. I tried opening one time, and you'd be shocked at what ended up happening to it, because everything that was donated ended up being taken from me. I ended up getting none of it. It ended up being a really long story, which I won't, share with you guys, but it was totally weird. And so what I basically do now is, I mean, and people don't have to, but if they want to, on my videos, I have an XRP kind of crypto link where people can go donate, through there if they want to. If people want to contact me, they can. My email's uprising144k@gmail.com. I've been trying to do, to be honest, I've been trying to do most of what I've been trying to do it all for free. I mean, I really want to bring this information to people for free if I can. And the biggest support, if people really want to support, if possible, is people can email people like Joe Rogan. Like, that's my big goal, is to get on Rogan. Rogan has so many fabulous guests, and he's never heard about hydrogen. I mean, there's nobody, not to toot my own horn, but there's nobody quite like me out there when it comes to hydrogen. And I would love to be on the Rogan show. And if anybody has a connection or knows somebody who knows somebody, send emails, subscribe, share, it's all about getting that word out, because I wanted YouTube to pay me in the end. I wanted to be able to get paid from all the subscribers so that it could be free for everybody else. You know what I mean? That was really the goal. I didn't want people to have to pay for this knowledge. I just really want to give it to the world for free. I mean, that was really the goal.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you so much for, being with us Monday and Thursday night. This information is extremely valuable. I'm super excited. I've got all the websites pulled up. I want to start doing a little bit, of research. I have gone ahead and put the links again in the chat. So if you are interested in researching, or you would like to order your own machine, you can go to holyhydrogen.com. You can use the code uprising144k, and you can also go to mypurewater.com, and you can use that. You can use the same code in both locations, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, the code, uprising 144k works on both of them. And here's another quick little theory real quick, which maybe, and I mean, I'm trying to disclose these things here now, so when people eventually learn about them, these are minerals, right, that I use, because we know our food is mineral deficient, right? And these minerals are pretty awesome, because what I love about what this company does is they remove, and if you notice, the different companies that I support, they're all different companies. I just always try to find the best, and then I share with my viewers. They remove almost all the salt. So I believe they remove about 99% of the salt, but they keep all the minerals, because salt hardens arteries. It's not the best thing, but it's the minerals that we're looking for. I believe, and there's no data on this yet, but I'm putting it out here first, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be proven in the future. Hydrogen works synergistically with minerals. And this is one of the reasons that when I create my hydrogen smoothies in the morning, I have the fibers from the fruits and vegetables. I have the enzymes from the fruits and vegetables. Obviously the phytonutrients. There's lots of nutrition in there, but we know that food is deficient in minerals. I also believe that food is deficient in hydrogen. And I came up with that theory because there was literally in Japan, they would test like an apple. They would test the antioxidative power of an apple. They would literally put it in hydrogen water for like 20 minutes and take it out and retest it. That apple had transformed. The antioxidative power that apple was giving off was through the roof. It wasn't even close. So that's why I started making these hydrogen smoothies. I soak them in the hydrogen water. And I believe that it's enhancing all the food in there. And I add the minerals. And then, of course, I add a powder from a company. The company is called ishoppurium.com. And I use a product, the one I like they have a lot of good products, but the one that I like is called Power Shake, because the Power Shake is all food. and they condense food. And we know the food is deficient. So I take these superfoods, this powder, and I mix it with all these fruits and vegetables that are deficient in minerals and in nutrients. So I've created this power smoothie, this powerhouse. This is the one that the doctor had called me about my blood work. He's like, what are you doing? I made a smoothie. They're like, you made a smoothie, right? I mean, this is what I'm doing. And it's not complicated. It's not even expensive, right? But this is what I've done. I don't take synthetic multivitamins. I don't just take a multivitamin. That's not what I do. I have made a food-based multivitamin. That's what I feel that I've created, And so I believe in the future, we're going to realize that hydrogen works with minerals. And I'm already doing it. So it all works synergistically, because that's just the way that things work. Just like our body, we're not just a finger, we're not just an eye. I mean, we have livers, GI systems, teeth, tongues. I mean, we're this whole being, and we all work synergistically. And I just believe that that's how health works. I don't think it's as simple as a silver bullet. As cool as hydrogen is, it's not like it's going to fix everything. You want to combine it with super clean water, with your nutrients. It's like a lifestyle. But I tried to make it as simple and really as affordable as possible too, because I've done protocols. I've spent so much money when I was so sick, and it was stupid. I literally threw away my life savings at trying different things. And in the end, it just wasn't even that expensive. You got a good carbon distiller, you get a good blender, you get a good hydrogen generator, buy some powders and some minerals. I mean, it's like, that's all it took. I didn't need a cupboard full of supplements.
So my final question before we close tonight, I just have another question about the pure water. I'm going to assume that the reason that you're using the pure water machine is because it is distilled, which strips all of the memory and takes all of the impurities out. Then you're putting back exactly what you're wanting in the water. And I'm wondering how that versus, say, using pure, like what Alan's doing, using the pure spring water or using well water.
Well, here's a fundamental problem. I've seen the lab tests of different spring waters. Well waters, this shocked me, but this is why I go off data. Well water has tested worse than just about any water. I mean, it's pretty bad. And your municipal water sometimes is oftentimes better than well water. The point is there's a lot of impurities in water, no matter where you get it from. I mean, I hate to say this, the world's polluted. It's so polluted. Almost everybody's water in America has PFAS in it. That's just one of many things. I mean, if you look at the list I have here, let me see if I can try to show this to you. And just to look at the list. Here you have a bunch of stuff that's in the water. Here you got more stuff that's in the water. Let me go to the next page. I mean, look at how many things. I mean, look at this. It's like a lot. It's like an encyclopedia. There's so many crazy things in our water. No water filtration system, no well in America. I don't believe that there's any water that is going to be completely clean. And I know that a lot of people have disagreed about water, and a lot of people maybe don't like quote unquote distilled water. And it is not just distilled. It is a combination, because distillation won't eliminate everything either. Mm-hmm. It's a combination of distillation with carbon. I call it carbon distillation. So these lab tests were with that combination from the particular equipment that I like, because it's proven itself. I just wanted it clean. In fact, if I'll give you an example, you guys know if you go to a hospital and you get an IV, what kind of water do you think they use in those IVs? Do you think they put tap water in there?
I don't want to know.
Do you think do you think they're putting well water in those IVs? What do you think that they're using?
Probably distilled water.
That's right. They start with the base of purity, and then they add what they want to add. Because can you imagine if you just put something in somebody's vein? I mean, you could kill somebody. Yeah. It has to be extremely clean. And that's what I went after. This is all my protocol. I mean, this is not what anybody else can. I mean, this was because when I was doing research on water, if I'm again being really honest with you guys, it was frustrating because everybody and their mother had a difference of opinion. Everybody. Some people are like, no, this water, the alkaline water and spring water. No, well, everybody had an opinion. And I had to think for myself. And I thought, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. What makes sense to me is, can I just get clean water? Like, I just don't want anything in it. I just want the cleanest water. Can I just do that? And then beyond that, I start realizing, look, I can add some minerals. And of course, when I discovered hydrogen, when I started adding that is the main powerhouse. putting hydrogen is what changed the water. But clean water, that's why I said you can't just run any regular water through your sinuses on a neti pot. I can't imagine grabbing some well water or spring water and doing that, and there's some amoeba or something that will literally could kill you potentially. You've got to have extremely, extremely clean water. And this is the only way, by the way, carbon distillation, to eliminate all parasites, all viruses, all bacteria. You know, this is really, really important. I would not put any regular old water in my eyes, ears. You know, I just think it's important. I really want to make that a point because I think people don't realize that. Even my own parents the other day, it was a few months back, but my mom was running the neti pot and she was just using some filtered water. I'm like, Mom, are you insane? Like, what are you doing? Don't do that. She's like, what? I didn't think it'd be a big deal. I'm like, yeah, it's a big deal. You know, that's why this guy flipping died, you know, putting the wrong type of water through his sinuses. Clean water is so important. And look at all of America. How many people care about clean water? I mean, gee willikers, probably not that many people. That, you know, they'll buy bottled water and whatever. Look, call me picky. You know, I'm a little crazy, right? Sorry, you know, I like clean water. I like things clean. I'm a little bit obsessive. Well, I would just say I'm more passionate than obsessive. I just like things pure and clean. I think that we've gotten so used to just chemicals and we think it's all good, but not this guy. You know, I don't listen to what the world tells me. I listen to my own logic. I trust myself now more than I ever have in my life because, you know, call me crazy. Maybe the world's crazy. I don't know. But that's just my logical mind saying, do what you think is the right thing. And that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you for all your knowledge. I'm definitely going to be visiting your YouTube channel. Encourage everybody to check it out. And if you want to reach Greg, how do you do that again? You want to give your email?
Yeah, you can email me at uprising144k@gmail.com. I always tell people to include your phone number because I'm actually pretty big on calling people rather than emailing because when I email, we end up emailing back and forth like 10 times and it just robs me of so much of my time. And if people really want help, this is what I do. I put a little earpiece in and you're probably going to hear me doing things in the background. Sometimes I'll be walking, sometimes I'll be doing dishes, sometimes I'm making smoothies. I mean, sometimes I'm driving, whatever, but that's the only free time that I have to try to call people back and try to help them.
Okay, well, thank you for being so accessible. And thanks to all of you for joining us again every week. I really appreciate it. So much love to everyone. Much love to you, Greg. Thanks for being here. I'll be in touch. And until we're all back together again, have a beautiful and blessed week and namaste. So good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Good night.
Good night, guys.